as the Director of Communications has said, we called you because of two main reasons. Let me acknowledge the fact that it's been a while now since we engaged the media, and I've heard several speculations about my silence in the media scene. I want to assure you that it's because I lost my mother. I decided to lie low a little to address a few family problems. That's why you have not been hearing me in the media. It has nothing to do about governance or party or anything. It has to do about my personal problems. Now, we've just ended the voter registration exercise. And as usual, even though the immediately impending elections, is supposed to be non-partisan, because we are building on the existing register, which will eventually be used for the general elections. I think all political parties took serious interest in seeing to it that the right things were done. On our side, we were able to deploy monitors from head office to every region in the country. So we had a team going to each of the regions and concentrating on the various constituencies, going down to polling stations. They actually joined the regional teams also to go to the constituencies. And in the constituencies, our elections directorates also deployed to the various registration centers. So we can confidently say that we've actually monitored the exercise, and we want to engage you about a few of our findings. And maybe as members of the media, you have also heard from other political parties, so that together we can look at the challenges and then see to it that going forward those challenges are addressed. If there are successes, then we will also see to it that those successes are replicated in subsequent exercises. That is why we invited you this morning. I want to thank you for the keen interest the media has shown in the exercise, because all along within the 10 days there were various reports about the goings on in the various regions. I must say that taking the brief reports from all the people we have sent around the country, we can confidently say that the exercise was a success. When we say it was a success, it doesn't mean that there were no problems. But we judge the success based on, one, the preparedness of the Electoral Commission and availability of the Electoral Commission staff at all the registration centers, and the availability of registration material in almost all the centers, apart from a few of them which I'll be dilating on later on. We also observed that this exercise has been one of the most peaceful registration exercises ever conducted by the Electoral Commission. And again, I must say that apart from the Kumasi metropolis, our monitors did not encounter any situation of violence or disagreements of any significance anywhere throughout the country. And I think that we must commend ourselves that our democracy is coming of age as a country. Now, having said that, it was apparent that the turnout was on the low side. So if you take this registration in isolation, you can only conclude that the turnout was very, very low. But we must not stop at just the absolute figures for the turnout. We have done some analysis, and we have come to the conclusion that the turnout appears to be a way in which the register is correcting itself. You remember that the registration in 2012 was the first time that we were using the biometric technology. And because of that, many people felt that they could do the old bad things that they were doing, i.e. multiple registration and so on. Some of these, all of these names were subsequently cleaned out. But one area where the technology could not clean out the names was the area of minors having their names on the register. Because the biometric technology cannot detect the age of a potential registrant. So it is known by the Commission itself and by the political parties that if people found a way of putting the names of minors on the register, then the system becomes helpless in addressing or in removing those names, so long as there are not multiple registrations. So the Electoral Commission has consistently been advising the population that we should be careful not to put the names of minors on the register. Now, I want to believe that that advice was not heeded in the previous elections. So you have a situation that going into these elections, there were people who were already 16, 17, and found their names on the register in the previous registration exercise. Now, 2 years later, they have become of age. But they cannot register again. If they tried it, they will be caught. So that, in our view, contributed to the low turnout at the various registration centers, because people rushed and put names of people who were underage in those days. And once you were captured as underage 2 years ago, now if you become of age, you cannot put your name there again, unless you go and take new people who are now around 16. But because perhaps of the vigilance, many people, and the public education, many people did not feel like risking, the arrest because of the names they have there. I want to buttress this, my thesis, by the statement that is often made by Mr. McMahon, the former chairman of MPP. Mr. McMahon keeps on saying that our register is bloated and it has to be cleaned, and he believes that it is made up of double registrants and so on. And so that is the reason why he thinks we have to replace the whole register. Our answer is simple. If you put the names of minors on the register and you want to compare the ages of, you want to compare 18-year-olds upwards with the national population census figures, you will clearly be wrong, because you will see that whereas you are dealing with the population census figures from 18 years and above, on the register you will be finding a bigger figure because minors have found their names on the register. So going forward, you cannot be complaining about low turnouts in subsequent registrations. If low turnouts have been registered, it means that those minors are growing now, and new minors are not prepared to register. So as we move along, you see that you get to a point where the population census figures would be consistent with the voter registration figures. So their own arguments seem to suggest that the Electoral Commission is on the right path, and their own arguments seem to suggest that the low turnout is indeed a way in which the register is correcting itself. So it should never be the case that if you have population figures different from voter registration figures, then it means that the voters register must be scrapped and new register will be built. So long as you don't have a system of preventing minors from putting their names on the register, you have the problem. And I believe that moving forward, we will come to a point where if we finish with the national identification exercise, there may not be the need to conduct a separate voter registration at all, because every Ghanaian will have a national ID card, and as and when your age group, your age hits 18, you can easily be migrated into the voting system, and then that will be all. But before then, the biometric technology represents the best technology available, and we have applied it very well. I have heard people framing a lot of stories that the Supreme Court called for the replacement of the register. I want to challenge anybody who claims that as part of the Supreme Court ruling, the Electoral Commission was urged to replace the register. There was no ruling of the Supreme Court like that. And indeed, the Supreme Court did not make any significant finding about wrong names on the register. If my memory could serve me right, or going by the rulings, a sort of which are available to everybody, the Supreme Court indeed indicated that the revision or compilation of the register must be done in good time, so that the political parties will have copies. The Supreme Court, before the elections, the Supreme Court never requested Electoral Commission to replace the register completely at any point. So that is that. Now, the other challenges that we saw on the field. In the past limited registration exercises, the registration teams were assigned to the electoral area, and the movement plan was given by the district electoral officers to the registration teams within the electoral areas. So the team will be moving, to the various villages within the electoral area over the 10-day period. In this particular exercise, the reports we had from the commission officials were that they were instructed to remain at one point. And I think that this did not go well for the rural population, where you have 2, 3, or even 5 villages constituting an electoral area. When the team is positioned in only one of them, then it imposes a difficulty on the other villagers moving to that single village to have their names registered. I think that going forward, we should revert back to the old system where the team will be moving according to the movement plan that will cover the whole electoral area, because the teams are designated electoral area registration teams. They are not designated for single polling stations. It created a little bit of a problem for the registrants in the rural areas. In the urban centers, because the electoral area was just in a section of the community and the population was dense, it didn't take too much time walking from your house to the registration center. So the current system that was used seemed to have worked against the rural population. We want to draw the attention of the Electoral Commission to this fact so that it is addressed. Now, again, we encountered some problems in Ashanti region. And when we talk about Ashanti region, not even every part of Ashanti region, specifically the Kumasi metropolis. And I think these problems must be nipped in the bud, otherwise it will generate a bigger problem when we are approaching the 2016 elections. We all know that according to the electoral laws, nobody can prevent anybody who presents himself at the registration center to get their names captured. If you are a party agent, you cannot prevent another person from registering. What you can do lawfully is to complete a challenge form, which means that you are convinced that that person is not qualified to have his or her name on the voters register. And then you fill a challenge form and then go and gather your evidence so that subsequently, when there is a registration review committee meeting, you go and defend your case. And then you have people who will sit there and review the evidence and determine whether that person's name ought to be on the register or not. If somebody who is otherwise not qualified is allowed to have their name on the register without that challenge, then it becomes problematic in the subsequent election if they present themselves to want to vote. Because at the polling station, the agents again cannot prevent people whose names are already on the register from voting on account of their age or any other disqualification. So we always insist as political parties that the challenge forms must be readily available at the registration centers. There were times where we even demanded that Electoral Commission should make those forms available to the political parties so that they can give them to their registration agents. And so when you see anybody who you think is not qualified, you will not need to beg the registration official to give you a form to complete to challenge that person. You already have your set of forms, and then you can use them to challenge whoever you want to challenge. And as far as the law is concerned, there is no limit to the number of persons that can be challenged, so long as wrong people continue presenting themselves at the polling station and you believe that you have evidence to that effect, you can challenge. So technically, everybody who comes to register there can be challenged, even if it means all of them. So we witnessed a situation in Ashanti region where, on one hand, some bullies were moving around, attacking people, innocent people, that they were not from that region, and so they were not entitled to register their names. I think this is a very dangerous thing if we allow it to continue. It will hurt our democracy. And I want to believe that those who were doing that were fully aware that they could take advantage of the challenge procedure. That was why you heard me saying that if the Electoral Commission staff withheld the challenge forms from the registration agents, then they could be blamed for the subsequent violence that appeared somewhere in Kumasi. So, whilst we are commending the Commission for a good work done, we still think that whatever motivated their representatives in Ashanti region, or particularly Kumasi, to withhold the challenge forms from the registration agents of political parties must be investigated. Otherwise, if we take that system to 2016, it could be a major challenge for our elections. Number two, there was an incident where senior officials of MPP moved to a lorry station and surrounded a group of people who had landed from Bolga, rounded them up and marched them to MPP offices, gave them terrible beatings before handing them over to the police. Their crime was that they have entered Kumasi on a registration day, so therefore their intention was to register for NDC. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that you heard me clearly when I was calling for some psychiatric examination of certain people who were involved in this activity. First of all, I did say, and I want to repeat, that if it is indeed true that those passengers who were rounded up and beaten up, if it is indeed true that they indicated that they were mobilized and put on a bus to come to Kumasi to register as voters so they can subsequently vote for NDC, then they must be examined by psychiatric doctors. Because, I mean, nobody does anything that will have that without any motive. If they are coming from Bolga to register in Kumasi, it cannot be for the purpose of voting for the presidential candidate, because they could register in Bolga and vote for the presidential candidate, and it goes into the same count. If their intention is to vote for the parliamentary candidates, then you ask yourself, if MPP parliamentary candidate can beat NDC parliamentary candidates in Kumasi with a margin of 80,000, 70,000 and so on, and anybody thinks that a bus load of NDC people from Bolga can come and dilute the vote of Manshia or Subi or Bantuma or anywhere, to be able to turn the tables round for NDC candidate to win there, don't you agree to me, with me that that person has to be examined? Now, I have heard the goalposts being shifted, that those people intended to register in Asawasi. And I ask you, for what purpose? Because Asawasi is our stronghold anyway. So who will go to mobilize people to go and register in their stronghold, when winning by 1 vote is as good as winning by 1 million votes in parliamentary elections? So the truth of the matter is that you have bandits who have taken the law into their own hands, going from lorry park to lorry park, molesting innocent citizens and putting charges on them, infringing on their fundamental human rights. This country, Ghana, is one country. Nobody prevents anybody from moving from one place to the other. And I have not cited any law that says that during registration periods, people should not move from one regional capital to another regional capital, and if they are found moving, then they obviously have come because of registration. If you found them at registration centers in the queue, you can talk about it, you can challenge them, but for heaven's sake, you cannot go and begin rounding people up, civilians rounding people up, taking them to places, detaining them and beating them up before handing over to the police. I want the regional police commander to investigate this matter thoroughly. We should not just play politics with this type of infringement on the rights of innocent citizens. I heard a lot of people talking about the fact that, particularly the MPP, talking about the fact that they went to Aflao, they went to other places, and the borders were open and people were going in and out. For heaven's sake, who declared the closure of borders in this country before the registration exercise? Borders have not been closed. Otherwise, why should the airport be operating? Otherwise, why should the seaport be operating? Otherwise, why should the borders in Ghana, Burkina, Cote d'Ivoire borders be opening? So what is wrong with people moving across borders? If we think that as a nation, it is wrong to get people moving across borders, let us take a decision, put it in our law, and close all the borders during registration exercise for the 10 days. But you see, walking to Ketu and then announcing on radio that I have come to Ketu and I have seen people crossing from Togo to Ghana, and then when you are asked, you talk about Ebola. If you are doing Ebola, go and do Ebola. Ebola has nothing to do with our registration. If you are interested in checking your national security, that is a different assignment. It's a good citizenship act. But to try to insinuate that because people are crossing from Togo to Ghana, it means that those people who are crossing are coming to register. Who said that if you are a Ghanaian and you are in Togo, and you want to come back to your constituency to register, the law prevents you from so doing? Who said that if you are a Ghanaian and you are a resident in London and you want to fly to Kotoka International Airport so you can get out to go to your constituency to register, there's any law that prevents you from registering? So I want to end here and urge all of you to help us get to the bottom of these Kumasi incidents, where party officials could organize bandits to arrest people who are lighting ordinary passengers who have come to transact their businesses, arrest them, take them to MPP office, beat them, and then hand them to police stations.
Right. That's a lot to digest, but to move right on and speak with the national organizer for the New Patriotic Party, John Bwedu. He's joined me over the telephone. Hello, John.
Yes, how are you?
I'm very well. You've been listening in on the words of Johnson Asiedu Nketia. Your reaction to him?
Well, it's not my reaction. I commend him for the swift responses to events that happen in the Ashanti region, basically from what I heard. But I think that Ashanti region is not the only region in Ghana. I would have loved for him to also be interested in what also happened in the Volta region, in the northern region, in the western region, in the central region, and all the regions of our country. From some of the comments being made, I think that well, if he says that there are events that he thinks that the police or security agencies must thoroughly investigate, nobody begrudge him from doing so. But it is important to recognize that in as much as all of us have the right to move from one area to the other, the constitution of our country and the political party law also brings in a prerequisite that allow somebody to be able to register in a particular polling station, that you must be a resident or ordinary resident of the place. So that if, for instance, I come from Asenfosu, I stay there, I cannot join registration exercise, move to, say, Aflao to decide to register there. You understand? And I think that he understands this very well, and he knows that it is not proper, irrespective of the fact that you have the right to move from one place to the other. There are other clauses that enable you or gives you
John,
the right
if we are still talking about the Kumasi incident, Johnson mentioned the fact that these people were ordinary persons who had come to do business in Kumasi, and hence there was no law against traveling while voter registration was on.
I don't know whether he sent them to go and do the business in Kumasi. I don't know whether he knows what they're about to do in Kumasi. You understand? That's what I'm saying, that if it is, he's putting it before the law enforcement agency, that's okay. It can be investigated. But we will also, as a political party, not allow this behavior that anybody will just move from one place to the other to decide to register in the name of registration. He's not concerned about.
Indeed,
he's not concerned about people who, by qualification clause, must be citizens of our country to be able to register. So he thinks that anybody can move from one border to the other to register, and that one is not his problem. But I'm saying that I commend him. It is for him to raise the issue. You understand?
Indeed.
But I'll be more happy if he's really concerned about the sanctity and the integrity of our voter register. He should be concerned about all regions.
He is all right, because he's mentioned that the low turnout was actually a way of correcting the register itself. So then we shouldn't even bother about the low turnout. It was
when
a way
you
of...
talk about low turnout, on what basis are you talking about low turnout? Is it based on the census figure 2010 and your extrapolation about what you are expecting in 2014, the number of people to register? Is it what you are talking about? Have you put together figures? What do you mean by low turnout?
This your census you have mentioned. According to him, it is a non-starter from the beginning, because then you can't compare the 2010 census to a register we are having now.
I think that it will be unfortunate. I didn't hear from him like that. It will be unfortunate for him not to understand even the census figures as a basis of extrapolating and knowing what should happen. Because as part of their own training manual, if you pick the NDC training manual, they've picked the census figures in 2010 and done some extrapolations. Is he running away from his own training manual for his own people? The fact of the matter is that we did a census in 2010. That tells us the category of age groups per region, per year. You understand? According to the census figure. What will happen is that there's migration, you understand, which will be taken care of. But in total, it cannot change. You can't have a situation where within 2-3 years, you give back to somebody at 0 and becomes 18 by 2014. So
John,
you cannot run away from it, because he believes in it, and it is part of their training manual.
John, it's a shame that we have very little time. But there's something else. You say it's a training manual. There's something else I'd want us to talk about. The fact that, so indeed, the NPP beats the people from the north up.
No, I don't.
Oh, but that's what he said, and you never said anything about it from the beginning.
You can listen to him for its own sake.
So you didn't beat them up.
Well, if you are talking, you see,
you didn't beat them up.
No, I'm saying that if you want to listen to Student Ketia to conclude, I don't think that it would be fair.
So what happened?
I don't have to explain. He says that you putting it before the security agencies, so they will look at it. And I think that it would be fairer for us to leave it to them. But he must be concerned about the whole Ghana. Ashanti region is not, I don't know whether it is because of the Great Ashanti Project, but I can assure him that the New Patriotic Party will make sure that all the laws of our country is respected, whether in the Ashanti region, whether in the northern region, whether in the central region, whether in the Volta region. Ask him, why did they use government machinery, DCs, writing letters to district educational officers, getting data of students from the Ashanti region alone. Is it not concerned about what happens in the Volta region? Some of these people who are not sincere must not be tolerated. And I think that Asedum Ketia can do better than this. But I'm happy he's been able to come out. I'm happy he's put it before an agency that will be fair to all of us. But I think just my initial reaction, I'm putting together the totals, I'm putting together all the DCs, the ministers that went around intimidating people, moving machines from one area to the other, intimidating and molesting people, using, yeah, I'm telling you. I'm putting together those ones. Yeah. But we're here, didn't I say to Ketia here, that at Mensia North, some of the attacks went and smashed the machine that was used for registration exercise. Is he not aware that one was not part of what
you know what, John, I think we should do? We'll continue this conversation at midday when you have properly put together your reaction. Like you said, this is just your initial reaction. So we'll engage you again at midday on News Today. Thank you very much, John.
Fantastic.
John Boedu is national organizer for the New Patriotic Party. Unfortunately, we have to end our conversation here. But there's more to this. We'll talk more about the aftermath of the voter registration exercise. We'll speak to an election observer, what they also independently observe. We'll speak to the political parties as they tell us some of their truths. I'll see you then. My name is Kemini Yamani Amana. Thanks for watching.